Hello, this is Alan G. Davison here, and I am here to bring you another chapter of the book I wrote that has lots of grammar errors and bad spelling mistakes and hiccups in the plot and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm on chapter 4, if I remember correctly. I actually wrote down while I was pressing the record button what chapter I was on, but I almost kind of forgot it, which I have to tell myself, which is why I'm talking out loud. And stop patting me on the chest, babe. You're starting to make me feel even worse than I already am. Now, I'm going to continue on here at chapter 4. I've really got nothing important to actually say about this chapter just yet, because I don't really remember this. Well, I kind of remember what happens in this chapter, but I'll talk more about it after I'm done reading this time. Who are you? Darius asked in concern, not removing his blade. The woman vanished, and he spun around to see her holding a knife at his neck. Why don't you read my mind? She asked, and all at once could see was a smirk on her face. There should be a there or something like that there, right? And for those of you who actually think I'm talking to the side of the couch or anything like that, Brandy's currently laying on my lap. This is actually not as uncomfortable as I thought it would be. Stop giggling. This is supposed to be a recording of me right. Don't stick your You're distracting. I'm ignoring you now. Because I can't, he answered with frustration in his words. Can't, or because you don't know what to look for, she mocked. No, I know what I'm looking for, he answered. Yes, here you are, miles away from your target. You're not sure what you want, thanks to that little slip in the control back at HQ, she replied. How in the world? Darius asked, looking at the woman. His hand fell from his katana. I know so many things, but what is the fun in telling you? For now, it is best we head north. Any ideas on how to pass the time? She asked, looking at Darius before removing her blade. Since we seem to understand, I will be joining your little group. Group? I made no such agreement, Darius said, reclaiming his voice. Well, the nearest city is not very close, so our best bet is to travel together. So the woman. Darius snapped his fingers, having found no way out. So let's get moving. Snapped his fingers. What is he, a sassy black woman? What the heck was I thinking? Sir? Asked Alicia as she walked up from her sitting position. Descriptive words are your friends. Sir, she asked as she walked up from her sitting position. Are you part of the military? She asked. Darius figured as the man tried not to... glanced away? I think glanced away. Averted his eyes. Probably would have been better. Yes, I am, the man said, not really hearing the question. Clearly he heard the question. Definitely need an editor. So, what are you doing out here? Dealing with the angels? Aren't you supposed to work together? Asked Alicia. More or less, said Darius as he started packing up his gear. We should head back to town. We need the water as well as the food, Darius explained. And Alicia froze up when she heard that. I'd rather not, said Alicia, when Danian wrapped both hands around her in a comforting hug. It's okay, he whispered, as the world melted away and only the two existed. She hiccuped. We need the supplies, so you can stay here and keep the fire going. Darius and I can go along. He hugged her a little tighter. You stay here with... trailed off. That's not actually in here, but that's kind of implied. I did the ... thing, and I kind of figured that was starting... That's kind of weak, I think. I don't know. Opinions. Anyone in the comments section, more than happy to put some input on that one. Hope, the cloaked woman added in. Hope, you'll be fine. We'll be gone for a little while, Danian reassured his friend. I can't believe it. They're all dead, she croaked out as her nails started to dig into Danian's arm. Danian let her go, and she turned to face him. She had a sad smile as her eyes produced a few tears. She wiped them away as her eyes got a little puffy. You know, that was always a thing about actual movies and stuff like that, is everybody, when they cry, they always have perfect eyes. No! When you're actually crying, even if it's a little bit, people can usually tell even if you wipe your tears away. You don't get some stuff. No, doesn't work. Nope. Realism. The grammar sucks, but there is some semblance of realism in this book. Yay, realism! I'm not trying to be entertaining or anything like that. Shut up. She wiped them away as her eyes got a little puffy. Dane picked up the blanket, tossing it at her face. Dry up, girl, you're tougher than that, Dane said, smiling. Insensitive jerk, she glared back at him, a small smile hidden under the blanket. Not to interrupt your lover's spat, but we have no supplies at all, and the closest water supply just got burned to ash, claimed Darius as she turned back to face him. So if you don't mind, let's get moving. Insensitive jerk, Alicia muttered as her gaze turned into a lethal glare. Good point. Even the blessed can only last 2 days without food and water at best. Sadly, the closest town is 5 days away. Our best bet would be to return to the town and gather anything we can, Darius. Answer. Why do I keep repeating that? Seriously. Why didn't you catch that? You were supposed to help edit this to begin with.
Because that was when we were co-editing. I didn't start editing on my own till about chapter 14.
Oh, so it's my involvement was the problem.
That was when
Good
I
to
was
know.
reading it off and you were fixing it as we went. I probably could have gone back through and I did it on my own, but
I have nobody to blame but myself on this one, honestly, so as much as you're trying to make excuses for me, they're appreciated all the same. Thank you. Again, having fun with the wording and tone here. I'm trying to be clever. I don't think it's working out very well. One step forward, 2 steps back in my department. Okay. Darius answered as he looked to the rising sun. So, Hope, he glanced over at the woman, and Alicia, was it? The teenage girl nodded. Well, we'll stay put, well, stay put. Me and Dane will be back by the time the sun starts to set. Boy, an entire day. I suppose he wanted something to do with tone. I better stop shrugging. It makes my face look better than it already does. I need to stop having you involved during these readings.
You're the one involving me. I'm just gonna lay
Hey,
here
you know
quiet and
what?
listen to my
You're
own
the one who
story.
decided to lay on that. I have not gotten past the second page of this chapter. Shutting up now. The group each nodded in agreement as the two started to walk off. Hope grabbed Darius by the elbow and pulled his ear close. Darius, I need you to talk to Dane on your little trip to town. Get him to open up a bit. Why would I do that? Wait, what the heck do you know? Asked Darius as he noticed Dane wasn't paying attention. He returned a concerned glance to her, urging her to continue. This is a time machine. It should explain a bit. But for now, you'll need to know is that the boy's powers go far beyond that of any blessed ability in the world. Do you really want a living weapon with a bad attitude and a thirst for revenge? No, said the man said, turning his eyes away, not really believing her story. Good, now get moving. This would have been a perfect time to actually put the device in and actually sort of describe it. But apparently during my additional edits to some of these chapters, I'd completely and totally forgotten to add that in. I bring it up later, but still, descriptions should come at the earliest possible convenience for introducing a new item, concept, or a character. I need a little bit more setup for this thing, to be honest, but the damn book's already big enough as it is. I'm still a long ways through it. Good, now get moving, she ordered as Dane turned his attention back to them. Darius frowned as he waved his hand and packed up the gear. How did you do that? Asked Dane. Do what? Do what? That is a weird input. I mean, seriously, how the fuck did nobody not notice that? Do what? It says I asked. In the middle of... Moving on. You're wasting daylight. Get moving, ordered Hope. The two nodded and started walking. Darius glanced back. making sure they were out of earshot as he turned to Dayan. "Do you trust that woman?" asked Darius as he used his mind to see what Alicia was seeing. She was looking at the robed figure, but no words were shared. "What? She's a woman?" asked Dayan as he looked over at the bearded man. The man gave him a dubious look before nodding. "Crap! I just got my butt kicked in by a woman, no less." Bearded man chuckled at the team. "Kid, you got a lot to learn about women. They can be so much more dangerous than any gun or any blessed ability." "You've been around? What do you know about these blessed powers?" asked Dayan as his eyes fell to his hands. "No, well, about as much as the Church of Eden tells. Kami was angry at the wars and human arrogance, so he sent down an angel that burned through the skies, destroyed many a great nation, China, Vietnam, and a good portion of Russia." "How big?" asked Dayan. "What?" asked Darius. "How big were were the countries?" asked Dayan, ignoring his near fall as he tripped over a crack in the earth. "Right, of course." The man regained his composure. "Let's say," the man replied as he looked around, "let's say that your town is a mile or so, and that, say, maybe 50 or more represent the length of Japan. Maybe 50 make up the length of Russia. Never mind. There's nothing to compare it to. You really haven't been outside that place of your hometown. To tell you the truth, you haven't seen enough to give it a decent enough scope." "Oh, okay," said Dayan, frowning a bit, but nodding as the two walked on. Now, back to the story sent every government down the tube and watched as the one small patch in south of North America became the target of every person. The only place truly safe. He claimed he was angry and only let those that the residual had not harmed. Some that started up churches believed residual. I can't even pronounce my own friggin' words. This is just depressing. Residual.
Residual.
There's no L in it. I should have put an L in it. It's supposed to be a Latin word for a reference for something like that. I can't even remember what the Latin word was. It was Latin word for change, I believe. And I was just sort of running around when I early concepts of this, trying to put in fake words and hidden stuff, trying to be clever. Yes, always trying to be clever here. Not always doing a very good job of it when you can't even pronounce the own word. There was a pronunciation of it, and I actually did have it for a little while, but sadly it's been so long since I've actually used the bloody word, I've kind of forgotten how to pronounce it properly. Had not harmed. Some that started up church believed the residual is some kind of decision maker. Those of kind heart, which I highly doubt, receive fair looks and the occasional superpower, explained Darius. "What makes you say that?" Dan asked as he looked at the older man. "That one woman we have been dealing with," Darius said, pointing out a good point. Said Dan, nodding in agreement. The two walked on at a steady pace as Darius took on the role of explaining the different things he had come across. "So men actually fly in these things. No offense, but I don't think metal would be a very good idea for flight, much less be called an airplane. Perhaps you'll see for yourself. Honestly, I have no clue as to where to go. No home, no family. My dad never really told me what to do in these situations," Dan replied. "Not sure what I would do. I have my own problems to deal with, but for now, let's worry about getting to the next town," replied Darius as he gave the younger man a pat on the back. "Question, plus powers. How extreme do they usually get?" "Not very strong. One is usually lucky to have a simple blessing. Powers of any scope are rare, occurring in maybe 1 or 2 out of every 10 blessed tops. It's rare to get much use out of it. Some who don't always recognize it. The occasional lightning shock, maybe being able to call up a little water and believe it's just some precipitation. It's not like these powers are given a manual, but no one has ever cataloged them. In some cases, a whole group of people could be altered at once, and others could have a twin get a gift, while the other gets a curse. It's near impossible to determine who gets what, and what the limits are. Could it be compared to a muscle, then? The more you use it, the stronger it gets?" asked Dan. "Possible," said Darius as he rubbed his beard. It could explain a thing or two. I might test that theory." Dan smiled, happy to have proved that he was ill-informed, not stupid. You mentioned your dad. Did he die when you were young? Asked Darius. Nah, he was shot during the raid, and well, my home got burned down. Answered Dayan. The angels? Darius questioned as he looked at the young man with a confused look in his eye. Well, no, not really. Dayan shook his head as he stared down at the dirt. An accidental spark? Asked Darius. Well, it was a spark, admitted Dayan, eyes firmly on his feet. Darius nodded, but not really wanting to press the issue. Well, we're almost there. Keep your chin up. You may not like what we see. Darius sighed as he started to walk a little faster. Dayan swallowed as he walked after him, as the flatlands started to become blackened and the shadow of the woods spiked out of the ground. Dayan hugged himself as the smell of something wrong?
iPod dead.
Now I've lost where was I? Babe, what was my last word?
Don't remember.
Flatlands. Dayan hugged himself as the smell of burnt flesh assaulted his nose. Boy, that got dark fast. The area was now covered in burned wood and rusted metal, and nothing above a foot was left standing in the once small town. Dayan stumbled as he continued to walk, looking down. I saw a mechanical hand, and the face was... Dayan gave a small, satisfied smirk, but said nothing as he walked over the former building. Very dark. No, seriously, what the... Really dark. I mean, talk about vindictive. I don't even remember actually putting that in here. That's kind of what happens when you don't put up, pick up your own work after about 2 years. You surprise yourself with your own works. But, dang, that's dark. Yeesh. Dayan wiped the purge metal off it. Dayan wiped the purged metal off his face as he tried to find his voice. So, what exactly are we looking for? Asked Dayan as his mind went back to the topic at hand. Anything. Darius grunted out as he pushed some wood out of the way of a charred door frame. That's useful. Dayan walked up behind him, and that's supposed to be all Darius that said that's useful, not Dayan being sarcastic. Dayan walked up behind him, and Darius put his hands out in front of Dayan as he slowly tested the wood underneath his feet. Dayan tried to keep his shuddering under control as he started to shake. Darius walked over and rubbed his back, noticing the shaking. Darius walked over to the bar and, after a good look, slipped over and grabbed 2 shot glasses and something as he poured a glass. You old enough? Asked Darius as he glanced over at Dayan. The boy shrugged his shoulders. Well, like anyone's going to care, he said as he finished pouring the 2 drinks. I do not encourage underage drinking at all. But given the circumstances of the situation at hand, and the fact that I have never explicitly stated exactly how old this character is, I do believe the situation is okay. Besides, how high the drinking age completely and totally depends on where you're living. I thought alcohol was a depressant, asked Dayan. Again, trying to be clever. It is, but this stuff helped me out. Just don't become addicted. It may help dull the pain, but this can get you into trouble. Clear? Darius almost shouted. Darius slid the drink over to Dayan. The boy took a sip and almost spit it out, but forced it down and then slammed the rest. You had friends then? Asked Dayan as he rubbed his forehead. Yeah, you wouldn't think the army would get much use, but there are people who want to fight Kami and his followers. Who would want to fight a god? Asked Dayan. Those who don't believe he is one. Do you? Asked Dayan. The older man finished his drink as he looked over the bar. Doesn't matter. For now, let's find some water and weapons. Who knows what we'll find out here. Darius tossed Dayan a cloth backpack as he started to search the remains for water and other supplies. Darius clasped a hand on Dayan's shoulder. I can hear your thoughts. That kid was, and still is, human. I felt the selfish satisfaction in your mind, Dayan. He had a hard life. And to him, you had an amazing girlfriend as well as a father. You even had good looks. So he was jealous of you in a bad way. But he was jealous nonetheless. If you take anything away from his death, just know, anyone and everyone can and someday will die. You didn't have a father? Asked Dayan. You'd be surprised how much you pick up just by walking near a person," explained Darius. "Come on, we got work to do. Collect any water, food, or anything you can carry anything with anything it with." Ugh. I consider English my first language. This might explain the bad grades in my English classes, to be honest. Nayan lifted some of the ashen wood with 2 fingers as he poked around. The two had found a few bottles of unopened water and moved on to each building until they came to the tech shop. Darius had to hold the boy down to keep him from running into it. After a bit of calming down, shoot, the moisture collectors are gone. Moisture collectors. The thing was worth the thing was worth 1,000,000 water bottles. The man snapped his fingers as Dane quickly rummaged through the ash, grabbing a few pistol-shaped objects. "What are you grabbing?" asked Darius. "Energy pistols. I remember the bubbles were shields standard for most military men. While most basic firearms won't work, these can disrupt them for a little while and allow long-range weapons to be used," explained Dane. "Most high-class outlaws use them since they are so expensive. But usually out here they're useless. But considering you attacked us, it's best to have one." Dane smiled as he tossed the weapon over to Darius. "You do realize that if we ever get a shield, you won't be able to use long-range weapons unless you shut yours off, right?" asked Darius. The adult nodded as he shoved the last one into his pocket. The two had collected enough... there should be a win, I think. What do you think? Should there have been a win the two instead of just the two?
Probably.
I thought so too. When the two had collected enough provisions, their backpacks were filled. Darius noticed a second smoldering pile not too far out of town. "Well, one last place to stop," said Darius as he started to walk. Dane shook his head. "That's my house. Nothing worth getting." The boy turned, ready to walk away. "Then we can at least say something for your father. Come on. You need to get some closure, if anything." Darius grabbed his wrist and led him back to Dane's house. Neither spoke as Darius shoveled ash onto his father, covering up the bones. Dane stared hollow-eyed as he watched his only relative buried. Dane looked for a long time before he collapsed to his knees, hiding his face as tears streamed down. "If only I woke up sooner, I might have been able to save him," the boy blurted out. Darius threw his shovel down. "The man was shot. There was nothing you could have done," the man said as he helped the boy to his feet. Dane put his arms around the older man's body as he cried. The older man casually patted him on the shoulder until Dane regained his composure. Darius picked up the reins of Dane's father and placed them in a body bag and he had picked up. "Anywhere you want to bury him?" asked the bearded man. Dane nodded. "Yeah, the hillside next to Mom," he answered as he looked up at the mountain. Darius frowned, not looking forward to the hike. "Okay," answered Darius as he picked up the body. Dane turned to the last building in the area, still standing. Dane walked into the old workshop, his hand trailing the walls of an old memory surface. "Dad!" yelled a 12-year-old Dane. His father was sitting in an old computer chair, playing with an old computer chip. The man set it down and rotated the chair to see his small son. After a word from Sheriff Tom, the group walked back. The two walked on in silence of mutual respect back into town. After a word for Sheriff Tom, the group walked back to the girls as the sun blazed over in the Deadlands. And that there is Chapter 4. As you can see, quite a few hiccups with the grammar and stuff like that, and part of one of the reasons I never want to do self-publishing again, because I suck at editing. And if that's probably the worst joke I've ever actually made about a continuous book over and over and over again, but it does still surprise me to this day just how many little things can go wrong that don't involve spelling. It's a wonder I actually passed my college English classes, to be honest. Ah, well. Anyway, that's Chapter 4. And I have to admit, the whole concept of the self-satisfaction of seeing a bully get his is kind of makes a little bit more sense now. I really do need to have a little bit more trust in my storytelling capabilities. Anyway, that is the end of Chapter 4, and hopefully I'll be back with Chapter 5. I have to admit, though, that a lot of things that actually that I bring up is kind of weird. is time travel, the blessed superpowers, which I have to admit, big exposition dump in the fourth chapter about the concepts of blessed. The funny thing is that going into future books and stuff like that, I very rarely ever actually put in a person who had a weak blessing or anything like that, which was kind of weird, really. I made this whole explanation thing describing how most blessed weren't actually all that effective, or most people never actually recognized them and stuff like that, and just on and on and on and on about information and information and information. It's kind of like, I could have spread that out a lot more over the course of the book, but at the same time, I kind of see why I did it the way I did, because they're kind of just walking. Oh, yeah, that's great, words to put in a book. And they walked to here, and then they walked to there, and then they walked to here, and then they walked to there. Oh, yes, that is amazing storytelling right there. Overall, I have to admit, it's funny actually reading through this, is that I've actually finished the first manuscript for the second one, and a little bit of work on the third book, and the second one's even longer than this one, to be honest. And it's like, wow, I've kind of forgotten a lot of the things that originally happened in the first book, and that's kind of why I'm reading this, to be honest, is I want to remind myself, like, some of the earlier things and refresh my memory, because the pistols thing, I had totally and completely forgotten about that throughout most of the entire book, to be honest. And there was actually quite a few situations within the story where it kind of would have been useful to have such a device, but I'd completely totally forgotten about it until I got to the final finale of the book, and I never bothered to go back and add that into the actual story or anything like that. I might have remembered it, but it, like I said, I kind of forget a couple of things about my own works and stuff like that. I really do actually need to sit down and create a list of which characters know what information and stuff, because that would be such a great idea, to be honest. It might actually help a little bit. But, like I said, if anyone's actually interested in reading The Blessed, you can buy it, but considering you're getting it read to you for free, I seriously don't think that's a good idea, because you won't have my comedic commentary to go along with it. And reading through all of those little grammar errors might be painful to some of you more grammar gifted individuals, so to speak, because, as you can tell, grammar is not my forte. I like telling stories, and to be honest, I would have loved to have just turned this into an illustrated thing and sort of drawn out a massive comic book and just put it on DeviantArt, but I lack any and all skill and talent with the drawing and stuff like that. And I'm a very harsh critic for anybody who actually does do any drawing or anything like that. I'd be like, hey, that would work, and then I'd, of course, pick it apart and realize, well, not actually, really. That kind of doesn't look like anything that I actually originally envisioned while reading this book. Two artists don't usually clash very well unless one of them's getting paid. Anyway, overall, I do enjoy my stories, but dang, this is kind of painful to go through. Well, anyway, that is chapter 4, and that'll